Welcome. If you could find a seat, please do so. We're going to get started today with our ceremony. Please, everybody stand. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to DeSales University. We're so honored to be hosting this ceremony at DeSales. And on behalf of Father Greenfield and all the DeSales community, we are really welcoming you here. And I'm looking around, I'm looking around, and so many people are familiar. And you've been here many times. And I feel like you've come home. Even if you don't work here, I feel like you've come home because I believe that DeSales is part of your community. And so thank you for joining us for this ceremony. I'd like to thank the architect for this ceremony is Wendy Badman. She's a great friend she's our conduit to our community, and we're so thankful for all that she does here at DeSales University. So thank you, Wendy. Your stories matter. And we want to honor you today because your stories matter. And so let's get on with it. Welcome. Dr. Tom Craig is the Master of Ceremony.
Thank you, Linda. To our veterans that are with us today, and to our veterans' families, loved ones, and friends, and to our distinguished guests, Major General Still, Colonel Hunsinger, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson, Bobby Leshak Trotter, and to our students, faculty, staff, alumni, and members of our community that are with us today, welcome and good morning. My name is Tom Craig, and I'm an Associate Professor of Business here at DeSales University. We are honored to have you here with us today for this, our National Vietnam War Veterans Day ceremony, as we remember, give thanks, and pay tribute to the men and women who have served in our armed forces during the Vietnam War. Throughout this day and during our formal ceremony, we will hear of the dedication, the bravery, and the honor that defines the American warrior, the defender of freedom, the sword and the shield of our nation in times of peace and war. We encourage you to join us afterwards for a time of fellowship and direct conversation with these men and women whom we honor today. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as you are able, please rise for the presentation and posting of our colors, and remain standing for the invocation, followed by the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. And Father Doug Burns will now give our invocation.
Morning. Any Navy guys out there? All right. I know this is a long shot. Anybody serve aboard DD 692, the Sumner? I knew that was a long shot, but she earned her Battle E off the coast of Nam. It was my privilege to serve aboard her at a different time. Let's take a moment and recall that we're always in God's presence, especially as we come to remember in this place. So we pray God of peace, of hope, and of love. We gather today in this most holy week for Christians during a time of fasting and prayer for our Muslim sisters and brothers, and as the Jewish people prepare for their great celebration of Passover. We pray that all of your people might live together in harmony and in mutual respect. We pray for peace in the Middle East, in Ukraine, and in Haiti, indeed for all your people throughout the world. We remember and give thanks for the women and men of our armed forces who served this country both in war and in peace. We remember and give thanks especially for those who served our nation during the war in Vietnam. Wearing the uniform of our nation, they were willing to lay down their lives to protect our peace and defend our freedom. We pray for the souls of those who did make the ultimate sacrifice and those whose lives were scarred by the months and years spent as prisoners of war. We acknowledge the sacrifices made by their families whose long days and nights waiting for their news of husbands, wives, sons and daughters, moms and dads were born with courage and faith. We pray for those who've endured battle, whose bodies and spirits have been scarred by the violence of war. We pray today for all of us who visit the memorial wall with tears and an aching heart. Grant them your peace and let them know the gratitude of all Americans as they heal their memories. We pray for all soldiers and sailors and airmen who today stand in harm's way. Shield them from danger and bring them safely home. We give thanks for the military women and men who continue to bless our country by their generosity and service in civilian life. Gentle God, let every veteran of our nation's armed forces feel truly honored and appreciated for the service that they've freely made, and for the example that they give to all of us of courage, of honor, and duty. God of gentleness and strength, we remember the sacrifices made in Vietnam, and we pray never again. We ask now and hope that the hearts and minds of all leaders throughout the world be turned to the difficult work of securing justice for all people and ensuring a lasting peace in their nations and throughout the world. May our hope be fulfilled that war and violence come to an end in our land and in our world. So, Lord, we ask that you bless all of us, especially our Vietnam veterans this day, as we remember and honor them. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. We now welcome to the podium Colonel Nathan Hunsinger, United States Army, to introduce our guest speaker, John Kukitz. Welcome, Colonel.
I had to find my notes. Okay, good morning, everyone. I am U.S. Army Colonel Retired Nate Hunsinger and alumni of DeSales University, class of '92. Yes, I'm old. Today is a long day overdue for many Vietnam veterans. It is the day they should have had and received when they came home so many years ago from serving in a war their country asked them to fight. Let me say that again. They served in a war their country asked them to fight. Some volunteered, but most were drafted. And for the ones who were drafted and didn't run from the fight, but ran straight into it, I commend you and your loyalty to serving something greater than yourself. You answered the nation's call to serve in an unpopular war at a difficult time in our country. And for that, I ask that everyone here give these veterans, those who volunteered and were drafted, a round of applause for their faithful service and for the ones who did not come home. Today, I have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing to you a veteran of the Vietnam War who, when America drafted him in 1968, didn't say no, nor did he find ways to dodge or subvert the call. He answered it willingly and served his country with honor and distinction, despite the beratement he and so many like him received upon returning home. Born and raised right here in the greater Allentown area, he was drafted into the U.S. Army at the age of 19. Immediately thereafter, he attended the U.S. Army Infantry Basic Training at Fort Benning, Georgia, and then advanced individual training at Fort Polk, Louisiana. After successful completion of the AIT, he saw an opportunity to become a sergeant. He volunteered to attend a 12-week non-commissioned officer candidate course, where upon completion, he supervised and led training to prepare young men and women, young men at the time, for combat in Vietnam, a war he would soon also serve in. Still serving veterans today and those who have answered the call. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce today's guest speaker, Vietnam veteran and Purple Heart recipient, U.S. Army Sergeant John Kukitz.
Right. Good morning, everyone. And yeah, thank you all for joining us today. as I mentioned to Linda and Wendy, this room doesn't seem to be big enough anymore. So we'll either have to expand next year or find a bigger venue. I'd like to give a special thanks to Wendy for asking me to. That's fine. You keep that up, it goes to her head. All right. So she asked me a couple of months ago if I would speak today. And I'm not sure if she just likes the sound of my voice or if everyone else turned her down. But anyway, I'm here today. Now, I'd like to recognize, and like I said, the room is really crowded, certainly more than the last 2 years. I'd like to recognize every Army veteran in the audience today. Raise your hands. Thank you, Patrick. All right, good job. How about the Navy guys? Yeah, we got a bunch of those. Air Force. Where's General? Still, there we go. All right, and about the Coast Guard. We got him down there. We got him down there. All right. Oh, I forgot someone. And I'd like to take a moment. I've used this in speeches that I've given in the past, and I really like it, so I'm going to do it again. All right. And I'd like to recognize all the Marines in the room. Okay, many things have been said about our U.S. Marine Corps, and none so eloquently stated by Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, and I quote, "The Marines I have seen around the world have the cleanest bodies, the filthiest minds, the highest morale, and the lowest morals." That wasn't me, that was her. All right. "Of any group of animals I have ever seen." Thank God for the United States Marine Corps. Now, when I showed up today, my wife said, "Don't wear your cover because it doesn't work with a sport coat." But I saw all you guys wearing your cover, so I went back out to the car to get mine, okay? But for just a moment, I got a red one. All right. So, my good friend Doug Graves been bugging me for a while to join the Corps, or at least his part of the Corps, as commander of Bethlehem Detachment 284 of the Marine Corps League. I am now an associate member. So some people call me a half-assed Marine. Thank you. Semper Fi. Okay. Oh, what? Oh, you want that? All right. Thank you, Doug. All right. Back to the fourth ID. So, talking to Wendy, thinking about what I wanted to say today, and I've given speeches on campus here a few times. So I've taken parts and pieces of what I've said before, and I will share them with you today. If you've heard them before, you're free to leave. And if you don't like what you've heard, blame my wife, Carol, because she's my editor. All right. We're going to take a look back, and then we're going to take a look forward. And unlike a lot of speakers that we've had at this event in the past, I'm not a hero. I'm just a grunt doing the job that I was asked to do to the best of my ability. I was born July 48 to two World War II veterans. My dad was a tank destroyer commander, worked with General Patton in Germany. And my mother was born and raised in Germany, and she was drafted into the German army. She was a radar operator, and not a very good one. And she claims that She was one of the main reasons why the Allies won the war. That's her words. All right. I graduated from Whitehall High School in '66, and college back then just wasn't in my future. So I worked for a contractor for a short time, and then I was hired by PP&L. I received my draft notice later in 1967 and was inducted, as Nick said, to January of 1968. My basic training was down at Fort Benning, Georgia. And after that, I was sent down to Fort Polk, Louisiana for advanced infantry training. And for you guys that were down at Polk, you know, it was affectionately known as Tigerland. The climate and the terrain down there was perfect for stateside jungle training. So we're getting ready to finish up AIT, and some of us were asked if we would like to go back to Fort Benning for non-commissioned officer candidate school, sometimes referred to as shake and bake school. Back then, combat units in Vietnam were in need of squad leaders, and that was the genesis for the Army starting this program. We entered as E3s, and if we were successful, we graduated the program as E5s, buck sergeants. Then we were doing one rotation as cadre, and I was sent back to Fort Polk to work on leadership skills. I arrived in Vietnam in November of '68 and was assigned to the 4th Infantry Division. And there's a whole bunch of my 4th ID brothers right out here. Our base camp was located in 2 Corps in the Central Highlands near Pleiku. And I spent Christmas that year on the Cambodian border, and it was the loneliest Christmas I've ever spent. My unit was involved with many search and destroy missions, and there were very few civilians in our area of operation. On March 1, 1969, the 1st Brigade of the 4th Infantry Division began Operation Wayne Gray in the Clay Trap Valley. The operation lasted until 14 April. Our objective was to interdict the 66th and 24th NVA regiments and their supporting elements as they were preparing an assault on Kontum City. We were also tasked with the responsibility to prevent them from retreating back to Cambodia. Task Force Swift was formed, and 11 and 12 March marked the 2 of the fiercest days of combat during the battalion's 4 years in Vietnam. Excuse me. On March 11th, we attempted to take Hill 947 after 3 B-52 strikes. Patrol was sent out, and they were ambushed. We made it to the top of that hill the next day. And as we were preparing our positions, we received mortar, rocket, and small arms fire. We suffered 14 KIAs and dozens wounded during those 2 days. I was struck in the head and the arm by a 60mm mortar, but it fortunately didn't detonate. It fell down between my legs. While waiting for the medevac, I received shrapnel wounds from subsequent mortar rounds. First stop was the 71st Evac Hospital in Pleiku, then the 7th Field Hospital in Japan. After several months there, I was sent to Walson Army Hospital at Fort Dix, New Jersey. And after release from medical hold, I was assigned to a basic training company as a supply sergeant. I was an E5. The other supply sergeant was an E6, and we got along very, very well. And we had our desks adjoining with a 2-drawer file cabinet between us. And the top drawer was filled with all the forms that the Army likes us to keep track of all of their equipment. And the bottom drawer contained 2 glasses and a bottle of scotch. So yeah, we got along pretty well together. In September of 1969, a group of nursing students came by bus from Trenton, New Jersey to dance at the Fort Dix USO Club. After the event, the girls needed a ride back to their dorms in Trenton. The bus station in Trenton isn't in the best part of town. So myself, two of my buddies, one from the 25th Infantry Division and one from the 9th, we all had brand new cars back then. So we loaded this bunch of nursing students into our cars, and headed back to Trenton. One of my passengers was a beautiful redhead. We started dating, fell in love, and we've been together ever since. And Carol and I will celebrate our 53rd wedding anniversary in June. And like a lot of returning veterans, regardless of what war you served in, I had a lot of problems, and she's stuck with me, and I owe her more than words can express. Thank you, babe. After we married, our first home was located on Taylor Drive, which is just up the hill from the campus. That's where we raised our three sons. And the access program had just begun here at Allentown College of St. Francis DeSales back then. I applied, was accepted. There were about 8 other Vietnam vets in the program, and it was good that we supported one another, and the faculty and the staff and the administration couldn't have been more accommodating for us. I graduated in 1981, right? Okay. I kept telling Wendy I graduated in 1980, but I finished my coursework in 80, but didn't graduate till January of 81. So we set the record straight. And I'm really proud to say that my diploma, and I looked at it just the other day, it was signed by Father Gambit, Father Pachetto, and Father Dooling. And those three gentlemen are credited with a vision and the drive to make DeSales University what it is today. Now, since God gave me a second chance that day in 1969, I've tried to live my life by serving and helping others. I've been a Little League coach, Sunday school teacher, Boy Scout leader, church board member, and soccer coach. I retired from PP&L in 2011. And at the time, I was serving on 8 different boards of directors. And as time has passed, I've relinquished my roles in those organizations to focus solely on veterans issues. I'm a life member of the National 4th Infantry Division Association, the DAV, the VFW, Military Order of the Purple Heart, and the American Legion. When I was discharged in 1970, I signed on with the VA because that's what everybody said you should do. So I was adjudicated 10% for my physical wounds. And as you all know, when we returned from Nam, we were not well received. Veterans Organization refused us membership because we weren't in a real war. And the VA at that point was pitiful. So we just got on with our lives, our jobs, and our families. Now, fast forward to 2019, just before COVID hit. The Lehigh Valley chapter of the 4th Infantry Division had a reunion picnic over in Bethlehem. When Carol and I arrived, I went into the pavilion to reach for a Yingling. This fellow walks up next to me. He's reaching for a light beer. So we exchanged some thoughts about light beer. So I asked him, when did you serve? He said, 68, 69. I said, me too. I said, what outfit were you with? He was Bravo Company, 3rd of the 12th. I looked at his face and I said, what's your last name? He said, Gush. And I was dumbfounded. Doug Gush was our company RTO. He was about 40 feet away from me when I was wounded. And for 50 years, he thought I was dead. Thank God for Yingling. So we've met a number of times since then. Obviously, COVID interfered with some of our get-togethers, but we speak regularly, and we've been out with our wives a number of times. At that point in time, Doug lives in New Jersey with his wife, and at that time he was 100% permanent and total. And he's encouraged me. Actually, he nagged me for quite a while to get back into the VA system and get the benefits that I was due. So I finally relented and got back into the VA, filed a claim through Tom Applebach here in the Lehigh Valley, and in 2021 I was adjudicated 100% permanent and total, and I have Doug to thank for that. So all that being said, my message here is that it's never too late to ask for help or to offer help. I'm also a member of a veteran support group that meets twice a week. Mondays, we meet at the Allentown Clinic from noon to 2, and Wednesdays at the VFW in Whitehall from 6 to 7. We usually have 20 to 25 attendees, mostly Vietnam vets, but I brought in 5 guys from the sandbox because we need them now to step up and take our place. Some of the first timers that we see at these meetings are Vietnam vets that have not engaged with the VA. So part of our mission there is to support them, offer camaraderie, and help them navigate the system so they get what they're owed. Working with and helping other veterans has really helped me on my road to recovery. Now, Carol and I, there's a dog there. Carol and I, we volunteer for a number of organizations here in the Lehigh Valley, mostly to keep me out of trouble. Okay, I want to tell you about 3 of them. Battleborn was started by a post 9/11 Marine and his wife about 6 years ago to fill the void left by other organizations. We have access to many resources, and we partner with a number of service providers to help veterans on their journey to recovery. We work with the National Guard, Second Harvest Food Bank, and we feed over 100 veterans and their families each month. We provide transportation for veterans to their healthcare appointments. And recently, we partnered with the Northampton County District Attorney's Office and started a veterans court in Northampton County. And Chris Yarnell, the founder, Freddie Reed, and I have all been certified as mentors. So we counsel our mentees and try to get these veterans back on track. I'm very, very proud and satisfied that I was able to do that. Now, Battleborn does serve folks here in Lehigh, Northampton, Monroe, Carbon, and Pike counties. In 6 years, the organization has really, really grown. And like I said, filled the void where those things exist or don't exist. The second organization is the Veterans Brotherhood. Is Clyde here today? Clyde? Okay, he stood me up last Wednesday. I had to speak for the Veterans Brotherhood at the Lehigh Valley Military Affairs Council meeting. Clyde is a Vietnam Marine. About 10 years ago, he was writing a book and came to the realization that there's a lot of problems with veterans that maybe he could help. So the Veterans Brotherhood addresses veteran suicide, homelessness, and food insecurity. The organization delivers food to the Allentown Rescue Mission 3 times a week. Recently, the Veterans Brotherhood helped to produce a very powerful film. Some of us have seen that film. It's called The Journey Home. And it describes the service and sacrifice of veterans and the effects of PTSD on themselves, their families, and their communities. We're hoping to have a showing of that film sometime later this spring here at DeSales. The Veterans Brotherhood is based in Pennsburg in Montgomery County, and they serve Montgomery, Berks, Bucks, and Chester counties, and is currently working on developing a Veterans Resource Center in Pottstown. The Veterans Brotherhood has helped over 700 veterans in 10 years of its existence, and it continues to grow. The last organization I'll talk about is Support the Troops. And Valerie Ferguson is here. Val and her husband Blair, about 15 years ago, started their mission, and that is to send care packages to deployed service members, both here and abroad. Just to let all of those service members that we remember them and we really care about them. Now, Blair passed away about a year ago, and Val wasn't sure if she wanted to continue. But I prayed for her, and we continue the mission. And it's an organization that started with their heart, and it continues to this day. She doesn't ask much. And over the last 15 years, Support the Troops has sent out more than 3,500 packages to our troops. We don't solicit funding, but donations are always welcome, obviously. And if you know any deployed service members, whether they're your children, grandchildren, neighbors, please let us know, because we'd like to remember them. There are numerous events, programs, and volunteer opportunities on the social media platforms for these organizations. And I've also placed a number of brochures in the little museum that Wendy has set up next door. Now, my personal philosophy is a combination of words from a family friend, Dr. Jack McConnell. He's the founder of Volunteers in Medicine. And also music icon Toby Keith. Jack grew up in Tennessee, the youngest of 8 children. His father was a Baptist minister. And every evening at the dinner table, his father would go around the table and ask each child, "What have you done to help someone today?" And the first time I heard that was probably 20 or more years ago, and it really resonated. Now, Toby Keith passed away last month at the age of 62. And while he was playing golf with Clint Eastwood back in 2018, he asked the 88-year-old how he has so much energy and drive given his age. And Eastwood, who was working on a film at the time, responded by saying, "I get up each morning, I go outside, and I don't let the old man in." Subsequently, Toby Keith wrote and recorded one of his most famous songs, "Don't Let the Old Man In." And for all of you guys that are collecting Social Security, I would recommend that you just listen to the words of that song. These words really have guided my path for many years. And there's many veterans, young and old, who need a hand. My message to you today is, while we're all getting a little older, there's a lot of gray hair out there, it's never too late to join an organization to help someone. We've all been blessed and are grateful for the wonderful gifts that God's given us, most precious of which is time. Time to share with others, time to help others, time to love others. I encourage you to take full advantage of that most wonderful gift. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. We now welcome Greg Rogers, National Guard veteran and Assistant Director of the DeSales University Writing Center, to introduce our next speaker, Bobby Lishak-Trotter. Greg?
Thank you, Wendy, for giving me the opportunity and privilege to introduce retired Air Force Chief Master Sergeant Bobby Trotter. And thank you all for your service. When Wendy asked me to introduce Master Sergeant Trotter, since we're both English teachers and we both serve, I began to read up on her, and I learned what a remarkable person she is and what an extraordinary life she has lived. She is a mother, retired English and history teacher, a war veteran, and she volunteered as a donut dolly for the Red Cross during the Vietnam War from 1970 to 1971, where she traveled around the country to give comfort and cheer to wounded soldiers, wounded and dying soldiers, and where she visited children in orphanages. She has served in the Air Force National Guard for almost 32 years and is an accomplished poet and short story writer. Her work has been published by Warner Books, Rattle, and Minerva Quarterly Report, and she has read her poetry at the dedication of the Vietnam Women's Memorial. Ladies and gentlemen, veterans, it's my privilege and honor to introduce retired Air Force Chief Master Sergeant Bobby Trotter.
This is my first time, and oh, what a privilege. I am so proud to be here. I would have been immensely proud if I could have worn my blues. I hate to report, however, that gravity has won that war. Hi, my name's Lavinia, and I'm from Virginia. You laugh? That girl was in our ranks. And so was Jane from Maine, Sarah Lee from Tennessee, and Alexis from Texas. My name is Bobby Trotter, and I'm from Pennsylvania. Before I joined the Air National Guard and ended up for 30 years, finally becoming a Chief Master Sergeant, I was a Red Cross Recreational Assistance Overseas SRAO volunteer, better known as a donut dolly. A term of endearment bestowed upon our World War II predecessors. And this is how we started our everyday in Vietnam. I served from July 1970 to July 1971. 365 days, but who's counting? Sometimes it seemed to fly by, and other times it seemed to drag forever. Our mission was morale, and we brought a touch of home to the troops with games, stories, news from home, jokes, short timer calendars, and great big open hearts. We visited hospitals, orphanages, fire bases, motor pools, advisory camps, drug rehab centers, dog training centers, and hospital ships. Anywhere and any time that our presence was requested and our safety could be reasonably secured. It was all fun and games, literally, until the rockets came in. We were privileged to have R&R and leave. We could get out of country briefly, try to forget the bad days. I went to Australia, Hong Kong, and the Philippines. It was hard to come back, but we had to. We loved our men. In many ways, as I look back on it, it was very much like a fairy tale. In fact, that's how I described my adventure in the introduction to a novel that I hope to one day publish. I will call it Fairy Tales and Fire Bases. It goes like this. Once upon a time, long ago and in a land far away, there was a princess named Donut Dolly. She was not from this land called Vietnam. Her land was now lost in a dream, perhaps a nightmare. She soon forgot what tornado of events and emotions brought her to this strange and often terrible wonderland. But she was determined to make the best of it. Dolly was from a land of ideals, a place called the United States of America, and her people believed in freedom, justice, and opportunity. Her people thought everyone should live as they do. After a while in this strange new land where things never were quite as they seemed, the princess wasn't so sure of what she believed. The place was full of madmen, mythological characters, and danger. Yet, she was sure that she would triumph if she held on to her dream. She was the patriotic, all-American girl next door, college graduate, 21 to 23 years young. Her armor was a powder blue seersucker uniform with a patch on the left shoulder that read American Red Cross. Some thought that patch had magical powers that could bring an endangered soldier home alive. Everywhere she went, she carried a Geneva Convention card, which, like magic, was supposed to protect her from all harm. She was 20th century Don Quixote in a blue dress, the quintessential quixotic female parallel to the Mad Knight of Cervantes' tale. She was eagerly, idealistically out to change the world, fighting every windmill along the way, falling in love with prostitutes, dreaming impossible dreams, constantly being deceived and bruised. Her weapons were round eyes, an endless smile, inexhaustible energy, and cardboard and crayon, which she pulled out of thin air and wielded like a magic wand to create fantasy. She was a storehouse of games and trivia, everything and anything to distract from reality. She flew in magic carpets with strange names like Huey, Chinook, Kiowa, and Hercules. She lived for the moment but dreamed of the future. She was Merlin on the battlefield of morale, mostly committed to the code of chivalry, never sleepy, grumpy, or bashful, but always happy. She had many loyal companions, a sisterhood of fantasy, believing that they made a difference. Considered insane by those who encountered them, nothing could stop them from their quest. Unlike princesses before her, Dolly wasn't waiting for Prince Charming to save her. Her generation was not so much the Cinderella type as the Wonder Woman type. She would dare to drink me and fight her own dragons. Nevertheless, the little girl in her and the irrepressible idealism instilled in her calculated the odds. With over 100 men to each woman, there's a good chance she might meet her prince, her knight in shining armor, the man of her dreams. If only they didn't get killed, they could get back home maybe, and maybe live happily ever after. But it wasn't a fairyland, and it wasn't a dream. It was war, and it was a nightmare. War, however you experience it, is a nightmare and exacts a great price. Whether physically or psychologically, even if you're wearing a pretty powder blue dress and playing games, you will never forget. I would like to end my presentation. I should correct that because I have a special request for you afterwards. But I will sum up my experience with a poem that I wrote about my own PTSD. It's called Just Driving Along. The pain runs deeper than death to the soul, thus nullifying any option of escape. So one must live with it, try to control it, master it, reconfigure it, transfer it, anything to live with it. On a particularly beautiful late summer afternoon, she rides down a country road. She tunes the radio to the arts and theater segment of National Public Radio, thrilled to hear a discussion of Macbeth, a play she knows by heart, until she hears the actor recite, "Out, out, brief candle." Instantly ripped from herself, she sees another woman standing outside a dingy field hospital, holding a half-smoked cigarette in her hand, watching a distant flare go out. Its tiny parachute slowly descending into darkness. She hears a woman's voice weeping in unison with the actor's words, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Pain comes fresh as ever, and the emptiness. She pulls to the side of the road, stops, hangs her head over the steering wheel, and sobs for 20 minutes. Feeling exhausted and weak, she prays for the strength to go home and prepare a meal for her family. It is 25 years since it happened. On a lighter note, I had a special request to share one of my favorite activities in Vietnam. So here is my rendition of the famous, or maybe infamous, Red Cross Center Saturday night roach races. I shall read from you from my novel, if you'll bear with me a few more minutes. Dubbed the Ups and Downs Derby by Winifred, who had read about the Epsom Derby in the United Kingdom. The illustrious steeds for these races were the thoroughbred roaches that the men caught in the center during the day. They chased the elusive racers, placed them in paper cups with plastic or tin wrap, and prepped them for the races. Some enthusiastic owners even tried to paint numbers or racing stripes on their runners. The Ups and Down Derbies, by various names, became a proud tradition instituted by the first Red Cross units to establish themselves in Vietnam in 1965. In the case of the Benoit unit, my unit at that time, they were popular from day one. The Seabees built a special track for the events. It was a large rectangular tabletop with 10 lanes, each with tiny little starting gates lifted by a string. But it was painted bright orange, the universal rescue color, but mostly because roaches like bright colors. There was a battery-operated light at the end of the tracks to entice the roaches to race for it. There was a netted roof over the track, as Asian roaches can fly, and were known to occasionally opt out of the races. The races were generally held at dusk, since that was the roaches' most active hour after sleeping all day. Baiting with food scraps at the end of the track was forbidden, as was slipping grass onto the track to slow the roach down. Although it was a common secret that entrants often surreptitiously smeared beer at the end of the finish line. Like Aussies, roaches love their beer. Of course, gambling was also frowned upon by the Red Cross, and verboten, as Winnie would say, in the centers. This did not stop the men from off-track betting. Betting was based on fact and fiction. Facts being that most roaches can run almost 20 miles an hour. They can jump, fly, sprint, and climb, which must be taken into account as their training. Preparations went on all through the day leading up to the races. The Dollies did their best to mix up a Red Cross-approved Vietnam version of the mint julep, using lemon Kool-Aid and garnished it with peppermint and spearmint gum, which they got from the BX. They simply split the gum and propped it on the edge of paper cups. All of the women and some of the men made large brimmed hats decorated with tissue flowers, which would later be judged. Most agreed that a soldier named Heavy's hat was the prettiest. Contestants spent the day catching their entrants, naming them, registering them for one or more of the 5 races to be conducted before closing. Races began promptly as soon as contestants managed to get their 6-legged steeds into the gate. The start was generally announced with a bugler's first call. Different categories were established as roaches in Vietnam could grow larger than their usual 5/8 of an inch. Big Red and Romping Ralph were the favorites in the first race. Jody's Joint as the long shot, 10-1. FNG, a good name for a cockroach, whom the girls pretended not to understand, he was disqualified because he lost one of his legs during training. In the second race, Mary Wanna was the projected winner, followed closely by Lousy Lifer and Wobblin' Goblin. Palmetto Papa was the long shot. Prince of Darkness induced a great deal of excitement in the third race. He or she, as it's hard to tell, had won the last 2 weeks' races. This would be the Prince's Triple Crown, which could take a soldier's whole month's hazardous duty pay. Cuddlebug was the favorite in the third race, Beer Baby in the fourth, and Exo Excellent in the fifth. Hisser Pisser was the long shot, win, place, or show. Thank you, folks. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me be here. You're welcome.
Stand by, stand by. Okay, just real quick, another thought that I had. Read a lot of books about Vietnam and all the things that we all went through, regardless of what branch you served in. But a few years ago, I started reading books about the women who served in Vietnam. And it took a very, very long time and a lot of work to get recognition for those women. And most recently, I picked up this book from Amazon. Yes, and Bobby's in this book, okay? The name of the book is called Visions of War, Dreams of Peace. And it's a collection of stories and poems by the women who served in Vietnam. And if you want to get a flavor for those women who did their utmost to get us back alive, I highly recommend you check it out. Thank you.
That's all right. Thank you very much, Bobby. Appreciate it. I'll go slightly off script here too. I was looking around the room and I recognized a couple groups of people that I would like to recognize. First of all, our students in the back there wearing the uniform, ROTC folks. Thank you. And also, one of our students actually created a Chess with Vets program here at DeSales, and I just want to give a little plug to that. I'm not sure of the exact schedule, but we can certainly get you information. I think it's every month that students, or every couple of weeks, the students meet on campus, or veterans are welcome to come to campus and play chess with our students. It's a pretty cool event. So any grandmasters out there, you've got some competition here if you want to come by DeSales. Luke Colarusso is the guy if he's around here. So anyway, so thank you all. Okay. Again, welcome everybody for the ceremony honoring veterans on our National Vietnam War Veterans Day. The Office of Military and Veteran Services at DeSales University is a proud partner with the United States of America Vietnam War Commemoration, and we are privileged to honor our Vietnam veterans and their families right here in the Lehigh Valley. This national commemoration was authorized by Congress, established under the Secretary of Defense, and launched by the President in 2012. Its primary purpose is to thank and honor Vietnam veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice. Today and tomorrow, We join thousands of communities throughout our nation in doing just that. The Vietnam War Veterans Recognition Act of 2017 established the 29th of March in perpetuity as the National Day to recognize previously unsung patriotism of our Vietnam veterans. With this act, National Vietnam War Veterans Day joined the 6 other military-centric national holidays codified in law, among them Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Veterans Day. In 2017, our 45th Commander-in-Chief issued a presidential proclamation which stated, quote, "To ensure that the sacrifices of the 9 million heroes who served during this difficult chapter of our country's history are remembered for generations to come, I signed into law the Vietnam War Veterans Recognition Act of 2017, designating March 29th of each year as National Vietnam War Veterans Day. Throughout this commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War, and every March 29th thereafter, we will honor all those who answered our nation's call to duty. We vow to never again confuse personal disapproval of war with prejudice against those who honorably wear the uniform of our armed forces. With conviction, our nation pledges with our enduring respect, our continuing care, and our everlasting commitment to all Vietnam veterans," unquote. Many people ask, why March 29th? Well, the answer is multifaceted. First, March 29th, 1973 was the day that the U.S. Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, was disestablished. In addition, March 29th, 1973 was the day that the last U.S. combat troops departed Vietnam. And finally, March 29th, 1973 was the day that Hanoi released the last of its acknowledged prisoners of war. Accordingly, March 29th is a fitting choice for our National Vietnam War Veterans Day. In addition, the President's proclamation lists the number of veterans who served during this period as 9 million. This number reflects the fact that our national commemoration honors everyone who served on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces from November 1st, 1955 to May 15th, 1975. No distinction is made between veterans who served in country, in theater, or who were stationed elsewhere during this period. All were called to serve. None could self-determine where they were stationed, and all were seen in the same way by a country that could not separate war from the warrior. Each person who served during this period earned and rightly deserves our profound thanks. Some might ask, how are these beginning and ending dates chosen? November 1st, 1955 was selected to coincide with the official designation of the Military Assistance Advisory Group Vietnam, or MAGV, while May 15th, 1975 marks the end of the battle precipitated by the seizure of the SS Mayaguez, and the names of our service members lost in that battle are listed on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. So today, we gather for 3 key reasons. First, to honor those from the Lehigh Valley who, in President Abraham Lincoln's words, gave their last full measure of devotion. Those whom to us are family are also counted among the 58,281 men and women, their average age 22 years and 9 months, whose names are engraved on the polished black granite of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, also known as the Wall in Washington, D.C. Please join me in a moment of silence, respecting their collective sacrifice. Thank you. Next, we recognize those who served but are no longer among us, as well as their families who endured untold sacrifices in supporting their service. If anyone here is a family member of someone who served during the Vietnam War period but is no longer with us, would you please raise your hand in their place and allow us to honor you both? Thank you for the sacrifices you have made that enabled your loved one to serve. Finally, we gather today to humbly thank and honor the Vietnam veterans living in the Lehigh Valley. Accordingly, I ask everyone who served on active duty at any time from 1 November 1955 to 15 May 1975, regardless of location, to please stand if you are able or raise your hand if you are not, so we might recognize your service and sacrifice and acknowledge you in the way you so richly deserve. And if their families will stand with them, please, you are also to be commended for the sacrifices. There is something about this special day that stirs in our hearts and helps to honor those who served. Is it the memory of those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, cutting into our hearts the same way their names are etched into the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C.? Or is it the sobering fact that 1,577 service members as of today are still considered missing in action, and their families await word of their fate, and we continue our diligent work to fulfill our promise and bring them home? Or that more than 350,000 American warriors carry both seen and unseen scars from this war, and more than likely, some carrying those scars are among us today. Perhaps it is the fact that those who just stood and identified themselves as Vietnam veterans uniquely comprehend what this day truly means. They served, they sacrificed, yet received no thank yous, no cheers, or no parades. Although profoundly impacted by their experiences, those who were able quickly slipped back into the lives they had left as if they had never been gone. There is no denying that 50 years is a long time to wait for this honor. Regardless, it is vital that each and every one of you Vietnam veterans and your families understand the prominent place you now occupy in the conscience of our nation and the high measure of esteem in which you are held by friends, neighbors, and countrymen. Hopefully, the following facts will lend credence to my words. Over the past 11 years, more than 12,000 local, state, and federal organizations, including the DeSales University Office of Veterans and Military Services, have come alongside the Department of Defense as commemorative partners with our Vietnam War Commemoration. These partners cumulatively have hosted 25,000 ceremonies in towns and cities across the country, during which Americans have been inspired to publicly and individually thank and honor 3.4 million Vietnam veterans and their families thus far. This equates to 48% of the 7 million veterans living today in America and abroad who have served during the Vietnam War period. While more remains to be done, these accomplishments and the establishment of our annual National Vietnam War Veterans Day all point to remarkable progress as we pursue this noble mission. And today, we have the honor and distinct privilege to add to this recognition. As a lasting memo of our nation's gratitude, this commemoration has designed a Vietnam veteran lapel pin with the intent of having commemorative partners publicly present one to each veteran who served during the Vietnam War period. This lapel pin is beautifully struck and features an eagle's head representing courage, honor, and dedicated service, stripes representing our nation's flag, and 6 stars representing the allies who served, sacrificed, and fought alongside one another, all encircled by a ring of blue, matching the canton of our national flag and signifying vigilance, perseverance, and justice. The phrase, "A grateful nation thanks and honors you," is embossed on the reverse side, along with the commemoration's name. We'll now welcome Major General Still and our student veterans, Reynald Salazar and Matthew Tobin, who are going to be giving out the pins. Veterans, as your name is read, please come forward to receive your lapel pin. Also, if there's anyone here today whose name is not read and you served on active duty in the U.S. military at any time between November 1, 1955 and May 15, 1975, Regardless of location, we invite you to come forward and we will be privileged to present you with your lapel pin. And families, you are absolutely encouraged to take pictures. So, oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. And I'm sorry, to read off the names, I'm sorry, I'm going to have Anissa Thorne, United States Army veteran and DeSales University Student Veterans of America chapter. There you go.
Good morning, everybody. Wendy, thank you for this opportunity to allow me to take part in honoring our Vietnam veterans. I will call in your names one by one. I ask that you come up and receive your pin, and this is in no particular order. The first name is Vince Aquaviva. George Albright. Alexander Alex. Anthony Anfuso. Robert Adler. Robert Barlieb. Joseph Barner. Stephen Barron. Donald Bear. Dave Bennett. William Blaley. Cornelius Brady. Charles Brandt. Edward Browse. Richard Buselitz. I apologize. Baron Sabrowski. Thomas Christy. James Coughlin. John Colarusso. Patrick Kubich. Eve Kubich. George Dagos. Raymond Donis. John Esposito. William Festenmacher. Franklin Federo. Thomas Germuger. Tim Gilbert. Edward Goring. Jim Hanlon. Dennis Hine. Dan Heitzer. Pat Heitzer. Dan Hernickel. John Higginbotham. Bill Hines. Joseph Hinks. Richard Huzinski. Nathan Hunsinger. John Kellhart. Hans Keller. Ed Kloiber. Lisa Kocher. David Kraft. John Kukitz. Walter Lamb. William Long. Victor Madeja. Gary Marchetto. Robert Marshall. Ken Martin. James Mateas. Timothy McGlade. Patrice McKeon. Robert Moore. Dan Murphy. Thomas Murray. Dolores Newhard. Harry Newhard. Bill Nixon. Carol Nixon. Raphael O'Neill. Robert Parrish, Alex Parnas, Bill Pedrick, Robert Peters, Dennis Peters, Glenn Pfaff, George Pazio, Roger Ream, William Reitler, C. Rios, William Rodbo, Tom Ronnie, Larry Roth, Jay Rutin, Ronald Sager, Ron Scarcilli, Lou Schrammel, William Seaton, Ronald Sebring, Bill Siegfried, Jerry Sissian, Andy Smerick, George Soltis, Greg Stoudt, Frank Tassitano, Earl Thatcher, Ralph Timmons, John Triber Bugler, William Tufiash, Jim Turner, Art Villafane, Charlie Weaver, Robert Wessner, John Wyand, Frank Weidel, Jerry Wilkenson, Barry Williver, James Wood, Scott Wright, William Yablonsky, Norman Ziegler, and that will conclude the names called today. Thank you so much for your sacrifice and thank you for your service.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I now welcome to the podium Jessica Berger, the administrative. Sorry. I now welcome to the podium Jessica Berger, the Administrative Director for U.S. Congresswoman Susan Wild, and Tom Roney, President of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Lehigh Valley Chapter 415.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Tom. It is with great admiration and gratitude that we acknowledge the Vietnam War Veterans of America, Lehigh Valley Chapter 415. This esteemed organization is a beacon of service and support for Vietnam War veterans and their families. For 35 years, the members of the Vietnam War Veterans of America, Chapter 415, have stood unwaveringly in advocacy for the rights and benefits of our Vietnam War veterans. Their dedication ensures that the sacrifices made by these brave individuals are never forgotten. Through their essential support, camaraderie, and resources, this organization has created a community of healing and solidarity among its members. Countless events, educational programs, and outreach initiatives have been organized to raise awareness and understanding of the Vietnam War era. Today, the Vietnam War Veterans of America, Lehigh Valley Chapter 415, is commemorating their 35th anniversary as a VVA chapter. This milestone deserves celebration and recognition. As we honor this momentous occasion, Congresswoman Susan Wild extends her heartfelt appreciation for the Vietnam War Veterans of America, Lehigh Valley Chapter 415, and their families for their unwavering commitment to support our nation's heroes and their families. In witness of their dedication and service, let us come together and celebrate and applaud the Vietnam War Veterans of America, Lehigh Valley Chapter 415.
Go a little bit in the center.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jessica. That was probably far more eloquent than I could ever come up with. And I know it's way better than everybody in the chapter because they made me come up here because I can talk all the big words. So thanks, Wendy, and thanks to DeSales. Thanks for employing my wife for the last 15 years. Pretty cool. So not many people, even those familiar with VVA, know this, but VVA National was chartered by the United States Congress. And I believe we're the last organization to have been congressional chartered. Pretty cool. It was organized by and for Vietnam veterans. And you've heard people already talk about how, when we came back, we weren't heroes. And we couldn't join certain organizations. And so finally, a bunch of Vietnam vets got together and said, then we're going to do it on our own. Nobody wants to help us, we'll help ourselves. The original charter was granted back in 1986. We now have 650 chapters and over 90,000 members across all the states, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Just so you know, some of the stuff that we do as a chapter here in the Lehigh Valley, we've been donating time and money for homeless. And the time is, we would go and actually, we have a great big grill. We would cook hot dogs and hamburgers at various stand downs to help feed. Oh, we made soup too from scratch. That's pretty good considering everything we ate came out of a can. Yeah, that's pretty good. We actually know how to cook. We participate every year at Ritter Elementary School. They do a salute to veterans every year. We go to the school sometime in October. We get interviewed by their 5th grade students. And the students then go back and create a report about their veteran, the one they interviewed, their veteran. And they develop visuals on poster boards. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then we go back in November, right around Veterans Day, and the school has an assembly. And all the veterans are honored. Every grade, even the little kindergarten kids, they all have something to contribute in honor of veterans. And we go back every year. And I would encourage everybody in the room, if you get the opportunity, participate. It really helps the youngsters understand what various veterans went through, not just Vietnam, but at all levels. We participate in the Reading Brigade through the Lehigh Valley Military Affairs Council. We go and read to elementary school kids. I'm not sure they believe we know how to read anymore, but, and we all wear glasses, of course. Vet Fest. We participate in Vet Fest up at Steel Stacks in July. The Nam Knights were nice enough to invite us to that, and it's a great opportunity. Set up a table and we can distribute information and help people with questions they might have, not just veterans. We probably get as many questions from families as we do from the veterans. Hey, my uncle's a veteran and he's experiencing this. What can you do? And we'll try our best to refer them out to the people that can help them and get some resolution for them. We've been invited to the Siegel Museum in Easton, April 13th. Did I get that right? Thank you. A bunch of people over there that are coaching me. April 13th will be there. And it's basically a salute to Vietnam veterans. And we'll go and make a couple presentations, and we'll have a round table, and we'll answer questions and share memorabilia that we have and so on. Wheels of Time car show. Those of you who are familiar with the car show over there. In August, we'll go to Macungie, set up a table, and once again, it's like a meet and greet. It's as much fun for us as it is for anybody, because we get to tell stories that people haven't heard before, except the guys in the chapter who don't want to hear those stories anymore. So we get a whole new audience out there just waiting for us. And once again, we have materials that we can share and references for people. Just to get the message out there. 2 years ago, I bumped into a guy out there. He was wearing a Vietnam hat, and we introduced ourselves. I said, when were you there? And he told me. I said, so what'd you do? He said, I was a mailman. And I looked at the guy and I started laughing. I said, yeah, okay, right. I can see you out there with your little bag. And he said, no. He said, what do you do? I said, I was in the infantry. He said, did you ever get mail when you were in the field? I said, yeah. He said, where do you think that came from? Good point. So you never know. We have presented at various schools in the area, been to Palisades High School, Freedom High School, Saucon Valley High School, Trexler Middle School, Penn State Lehigh Valley. We go out and have a PowerPoint and little discussion with them about our unique experiences. There were, well, depending on who you talk to, there were 2.4 million people who served in country, which means there are 2.4 million unique stories to be told. We want to get them out there. We want people to understand what it was like for the average person. I guess I was the average person who get drafted, who get sent to Fort Dix, Fort Polk. I don't want to talk about that. And then to Vietnam. We have things to share. We have stories we like to tell. We have stories we don't tell. And we all know that, right? Everybody's there's some things I don't talk about. We organized an Agent Orange town hall meeting at Northampton Community College a couple of years ago. We had over 200 people showed up. All of them want to know more about Agent Orange. And we now know, thanks to the PACT Act, that there are 16 now presumptives, 17? That was 14. Presumptive illnesses that are tied to Vietnam. And finally, we're acknowledging that and getting treatment for that. Our mission statement says, never again will one generation of veterans abandon another. So we try to live that mission every day. Thanks for recognizing us today. We really appreciate it. And welcome home. Oh, and my guys will get angry if I don't acknowledge them. So if I could, folks from 415, will you just stand for a second? And there's about 15 or so, a couple different tables. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. That's a lot. Yep.
Thank you, Tom. And now for the presentation of the Military Order of the Purple Heart Leadership Award. I bring to the podium Chaplain Baron Sabrowski, John Kukitz, and Lieutenant Colonel Preston Jackson.
Aaron's. No. You, Baron.
He said, that's me. I always like coming to a program, picking up the brochure and finding out you're on it. And that's what happened again today. How did I get here? Well, to make a story short, I'll get it together. I was one of four brothers. My older brother, 2 years older than me, had a heart murmur. My next youngest brother from me had 4 years younger, had health issues, and the other one, 6 years younger than myself, missed the Vietnam battle. So I was the only one of four brothers that ended up in the military. And my neighbors volunteered me. I was drafted. I knew in 1964 when I graduated, there was no guessing. I knew within a year or two I'd be in the military. So I didn't have to join. But anyhow, when I did go in, there were four of us from Palmerton that got drafted on the same day and three from New Tripoli. Three of us ended up in headquarters company. One ended up in B company, along with some of the guys from New Tripoli. The one was a cook. He had graduated from Stevens Trade. Wonderful guy. We were probably one of the few people that came back from the field. And when we got back from the field, our cook would make us pizzas, or he would make us sticky buns as we came back. Now, I don't know how many of you people have that, but he was a professional baker by trade, and he really did his best to serve us where he was placed. The other one was a man. He ended up in headquarters company in recon in the scout section. I ended up in a rifle section. So our paths didn't cross too often, but one day we were together and we were in an area where we were going to set up for a listening points for the point for at night. And he may have been from me to the middle of that number 10 table ahead of me, and he stepped on a mine. It put us both in a hospital. We called it a booby trap. Today it's an improvised explosive device. They hit you the same way. He ended up in a hospital for over 3 months. I was only in for 4 days. But we didn't get together till about 15 years after the service. And we got together and he opened up a book and he was going through his Army pictures and he showed me an x-ray where he has a ball bearing in his neck yet from the mine. So I flipped open my book and I showed him an x-ray a doctor had taken of my chin and showed him the ball bearing in my neck. So we still each carry a ball bearing in our necks from that mine. He has a couple in his legs. So that's where I got my Purple Heart, and that's where I ended up in a Purple Heart. It wasn't the first one. 2 months earlier, we were getting up in the morning, ready to leave a position when we got hit by artillery. One guy was killed. One man lost his arm at the shoulder, and about 12 of us got wounded. I got a small piece of shrapnel in my knee, but the interesting thing about the Purple Heart, one size fits all. So even though I just had a few stitches from that, that was my first Purple Heart. And not to make light of the Purple Heart Award, because it is probably the best known award of any medals that's given out. But sometimes people will say, what's the Purple Heart? And I'll look at them and I'll say, our government just wanted a way to recognize some of us people that didn't know when to jump, duck, or run. Sometimes you just have to laugh to keep from crying, but it is a prestigious award. I didn't know I was going to be up here this morning, or I would have put a Purple Heart shirt on instead of my 4th Infantry group, because we're sort of unique. We train together. We didn't have drill instructors. The officers and the NCOs that trained us up in Fort Lewis, Washington, went to Vietnam with us. They trained us and went with us. So we were sort of unique there. And we've got a good presentation here today. But we're here to give an award. And that's okay. Who's getting it? Okay, I always like this. Come on forward, because I didn't meet you, Cadet Allison Hoff. And she'll be receiving the Leadership Presentation Award. So it gives me great honor to give you that and to thank you for the direction you've chosen and for your future. Thank you very much. Okay.
Hey, Paul, come on back up here. All right, just real quick, just a little bit something about Cadet Allison Hoff. She is absolutely got this, she got this contagious smile that makes you happy even though it's raining and all the things that we do at Leadership Lab in the field and things like that. First met her last year when she came into our office around May or June or something like that. And she was all motivated. And sometimes you see that and we don't know if they're temporary, they're just gonna check it out. If they get turned away just based on, hey, we're telling you we're going down to the field today, that kind of thing. They're like, no, nah, this ain't for me, like that. But she volunteered to go to basic camp last year at Fort Knox, Kentucky. And one of my the things that I do is usually have about 20 or so cadets that go out to Fort Knox, Kentucky throughout the entire summer from May all the way through August. And I do see every cadet while I'm out there, just have a familiar face, see how they're doing, and really see if our training is working for their, progression while they're out there. So I went to see Cadet Hoff, and she was at the high ropes course that day. So high ropes really is a course that's everything starts off from 10 feet all the way up to about 30, 40 feet. And I was like, all right, well, we'll see how this goes here. So based on the amount of cadets that were there, lost sight of her. And I'm like, man, where's she at? And she was like literally right above me, about 30 feet, just smiling, waving. And I was like, yeah, she's going to be all right here. So she also had a very busy fall with doing train for Ranger Challenge. Our Ranger Challenge team is trains really 4 days a week, about 2 to 3 hours a day. And also she participated in a couple of runs, including the Army 10 miler. And then she's about to go also coming up here to, oh, you just did the West Point run also. So last week she did the West Point half marathon. And if anybody's been up to West Point, New York there, the mountains are twofold compared to Lehigh Valley, and she did it very well, very good shape. She's also a graduate student here, which makes things extra complicated for her day-to-day life and everything. But we're about to go up to Sandhurst. She's about to go to advanced camp this summer, and I'll tell you what, we couldn't be more proud of her. Just the way she's progressed throughout this time frame in such a short period and all. So, hey, thank you very much. Please give her a round of applause here.
Thank you. Now we're going to bring, pardon me, we'll present the DeSales University Veterans Scholarship to Anissa Thorne, United States Army veteran. Thank you, Wendy.
It is with a great honor on behalf of DeSales University to present Anissa Thorne, Army veteran, with the second Student Veteran Scholarship Award. This scholarship was made possible through generous donations from people like all of you. Fellow veterans actually created this scholarship to help lift up others like yourselves to get college education, because we all know tuition and fees isn't just what the expenses are when you go to college. Anissa's daughter's here with us this morning, and we are welcoming you here to help us honor your mother. Let's give Anissa a round of applause. Anissa's here as a first-year student. She's pre-law, and we're very proud of her. She is a member of our Student Veterans Association, and she leads by example each and every day. Thank you, Anissa, and we look forward to great things.
I really want to say thank you, and I appreciate the contributions that was made for me to be able to do this. I want to say, as service members, when we serve, we're giving people the opportunity to live the American way of life. And then, if we're fortunate enough and blessed enough to come home, it's our duty to live the American way of life, and that is the American dream. And special people contribute for somebody else to be able to live the American dream. So I really want to say thank you, and I appreciate you, and God bless.
Okay. And now the John Rivers VFW Post 11322 in Quakertown will present the POW, the Prisoners of War Missing in Action Chair. Thank you. Thank you all. As we approach the conclusion of our formal ceremony today, on behalf of the DeSales University and our Office of Veterans and Military Services, I would like to thank all of you for attending this important event. I encourage everyone here to please take a moment before you depart to reach out, shake a hand of one of those just identified themselves as a Vietnam veteran or a family member. They all deserve our thanks and admiration. Join the nation and thank you, Vietnam veteran. We will now conclude our formal program with the two-bell ceremony and the playing of taps by members of the Fleet Reserve Association Black Diamond Branch number 115. At the conclusion of the two-bell ceremony, please stand for the playing of taps and the retiring of the colors.
Good morning. Welcome to the annual DeSales University Vietnam War Commemoration Ceremony. Members of the Lehigh Valley Fleet Reserve Association, Black Diamond Branch 115, they're all seagoing veterans, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, are here to present our two-bell ceremony. It's a ritual. I am Jim Turner, member of the VFW, Lehigh Valley Branch 115 Navy veteran. In days past, two bells marked the end of the routine day aboard ship. It was time for a tattoo, and soon taps would sound throughout the ship. Certainly, this is a most important, appropriate time to honor our departed veterans. Those of you familiar with one of the greatest stories of the sea, The Ancient Mariner, will remember that he found safe passage to narrow waters by listening to the bell and the spoken word. This will be combined to strengthen the bond that exists amongst all veterans.
Two-bell ceremony is a dramatic testimony to humility, dignity, and reverence and honor. It fulfills the promise of our preamble, our reverence for the memory of our departed veterans. The sounding of the bell is the time to pause and reflect on our comrades who are now serving on the staff of the Supreme Commander. The bell of honor will be tolled as a sign of respect and honor for our fallen heroes who have given their all, active duty, military, and veterans. Toll the bell reminds us of the reverence we owe to our departed comrades. Please rise and remove your caps, your hats, during the tolling of the bell to honor our fallen heroes.
The first 6 tolls are to honor those who have responded, served, protected, defended, sacrificed, suffered, and the 7th toll signifies the loss of life.
We who remain to carry on should not think of our veterans as departed from us, but rather as having been transferred to a celestial assignment where we hope all of us may be friends again. We have gathered here in tribute and respect to the earthly memories of those heroes on the sea, under the seas, in the air, and upon the land, who are now serving on the staff of the Supreme Commander. Many gave their lives in battle that they might leave behind
a land still free. Many spent years building a strong defense of the shores of this country, ready and willing to give their lives in defense of the country for which our forefathers shed their life's blood in making the United States of America. As the years roll on, one by one, we end our tour of duty. Though our heads are bowed in sorrow for the loss of our fellow veterans, there is pride in our hearts for the many things they did to keep the record of our country untarnished and undefeated. We who remain awaiting our orders feel inspired to do our utmost to live up to the ideals set by them and to leave behind a free country and the stars and stripes, still the standard of liberty in loyalty, protection, and service. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here today. God bless you, and may God continue to bless our great United States of America. Lunch is now served. Please help yourself in an orderly fashion. And the museum is open in the next room over. Enjoy your day. Thank you all. And I do want to give a special shout out to Wendy Badman. Wendy Badman, everybody. Oh, that's all right. Hello, sir. How you doing? Okay. Yep. Excuse me, are there any Marines who served in I-Corps? Marines who served in I-Corps, raise your hand, please. Marines in I-Corps. There you go, right over there. This gentleman on the stage will be heading your way.